So we are very glad to have Dr. Preeti with us today. She's going to talk about association of diet and developmental delays in children. Dr. Preeti Khanna is currently working as a technical consultant at Niti Aayog, Delhi. She has PhD in nutritional neurosciences, and she has attended and presented her work in many international and national conferences. She's been awarded scholarship by many international organizations, and she has also published many scientific papers on nutrition and mental health. We are very glad to have her here today with us. The stage is yours, Preeti.
Thank you so much for such a humble introduction, Dr. Garima, and thank you to the team of Here and See Clinic for organizing such informative webinars where we are able to disseminate the information and the latest research which is happening in child nutrition and mental health and developmental delays for the children of our country. Moving forward, can I get the host controls, please, or are we presenting it at your end?
Yeah, I'll present and I'll give you the host status.
Okay, okay.
I think you can see the screen.
Yeah, the screen is visible. Dr. Garima, I think it will be better if I present it from my end.
That will be great. That will be great.
Things will be better in terms of coordination. So I'll just start presenting it from my other device.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Please go ahead. We start the presentation. Meanwhile, if any one of you have any questions, you can put it in the chat box. So Dr. Preeti will take it at the end of the webinar.
I hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes, it's visible right now.
Okay, so should we start or should we wait for a few minutes?
No, please go ahead. We anyways have it on Facebook Live. So
okay.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this very interesting session on how developmental delays are associated with diet that the child consumes. Just to give you a brief background regarding the scientific context to this, culmination that diet has a role to play when it comes to the development of a child. So, a scientist named as Autumn had introduced this life cycle-based model, where he scientifically targeted that certain age groups and certain stages in life are well connected to the kind of food that we eat. And the kind of food that we eat ultimately impacts the well being of that person in terms of not just physical health, but mental well being also. Right from infancy till the time the child reaches his or her adult potential, diet is itself a protective as well as a risk factor when it comes to the well being. And if we talk about developmental delays, how are these developmental delays a concern not only for the child but also, for the caregivers and the parents and for the scientific community who has been working on uh, this developmental concept since long. So the brain, the organ which controls most of our activities, is responsible for these developmental delays. But how is this organ responsible for these developmental delays? There is the science which we need to understand. First of all, brain regulates all our activities, starting from our sleeping to beating of the heart, breathing, wakefulness, sleep, and digestion. It also controls our subconscious thoughts, actions, emotions, and basic desires. Again, for doing all this, the brain also needs a supply of energy, which is generally coming from the food that we are consuming. So now, this current slide is of very much important to us because it displays that the food that we eat not only just improvises the uh, you know is my screen moving? Can you all see the slide? Yeah. So this current slide is of very much importance to us because, like we all know, that the kind of food that we eat will ultimately nourish the brain power that we have. So now it depends upon us whether we want to survive on a diet which has excess of sugar, which has excess of salt, which has excess of oil, or we want to make it a little more healthier by replacing these products with something which is healthy and beneficial for our brain. And brain again strives on the kind of diet we provide to our body because that is the only fuel which helps in the functioning of the body, and it actually boosts the brain power. Now, moving on, let us understand that what happens inside the brain and why the food that we eat has a lot of importance. So, when a child is growing or when a child is born, up till the age of 5 years, 85% of the brain development that will happen over the years of life is already completed from 0 to 5 years. Moving on, during this process, during the process where the brain is developing and it has already achieved its adult potential of being 85% functional, a process known as synaptogenesis is happening inside the brain. Basically, it is a process where new neurons are formed, which are also known as the brain cells, and the junction linking these brain cells is getting more enhanced and more evolved. Now, during this process, again, neurotransmitters, which are the chemical messengers which transmit the information or the message from one brain cell to a targeted organ, they are basically formed. And these neurotransmitters are also important for certain uh, developmental milestones. For example, achieving a good mental health, or if the child is happy, the neurotransmitter like serotonin will be secreted. If the child is happy and is being rewarded and again performs activities where his movement and emotional regulation takes place, dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter, will be secreted. Now, why these neurotransmitters are important from the concept of diet? So these neurotransmitters are basically nothing but made out of the protein that we consume in our diet. Neurotransmitters are nothing but made out of, the proteins and their basic units, which are known as amino acids. So if you have a good protein-rich diet in the form of milk, specifically for children, research suggests that such kids have a good emotional well-being. They are able to concentrate towards their school projects in a very well organized manner, and they also achieve higher in terms of grades when it comes to studying. Now, what we need to understand is that when we take a child, or when we are concerned about a child's health and nutrition, it is not just the food, or it is not just the school where the child is studying, or the food that the child is eating. All this comes together and combines itself in a continuum of care model, starting from the personal environment of the child, which includes his or her preferences, his lifestyle, moving on to the social environment, the peer group, family, friends. What are the lifestyles that the family members are following? Is television viewing a habit while consuming food? Because research again suggests that screen time for kids less than 5 years should not be more than 30 minutes per day, and that includes all the time that the child is spending on a mobile phone, tablet, or even a television viewing screen, or even ongoing or online classes. So this is something that should be a focus area when we are concerned about the developmental goals and milestones of the child. For example, I would really like to emphasize on this thing that during this period of COVID, when everyone was in the phase of the lockdown, many children, in the age group of 0 to 3 years and 3 to 6 years are facing problems of poor interaction, poor, development in terms of emotional milestones, because there was no physical stimulus in the form of, the school or the playground area, or access to friends, or access to physical life happening, right in front of their eyes, and everything was getting stored as a memory in their brains while they were viewing it on screen. So what has happened is that the such children are again bound to not achieve their developmental milestones, or will always show delays when it comes to attaining a particular milestone at a particular age. Why? Because the physical stimulus in the form of physical environment, whether it is the school surroundings, the household surroundings, or even the locality in which the child is growing, again forms a very important part of achieving milestones for such children. This slide is again very interesting to me. Why? Because like every one of us has studied about the evolution of the early man, right, from the stages of being resembling a monkey, to now being resembling a person holding a can of Coca-Cola, is what I would like to emphasize, that as and when we are moving away from our traditional dietary patterns, and with the involvement of urbanization, with the mechanization happening, industrialization taking place at a very fast rate, the current diet again is changing a lot. And the composition of such diet, when it changes from being a healthy vegetarian plant-based diet to being a processed food diet with a lot of calorie and a lot of intake of sugar sweetened beverages, makes a person more prone to inflammation. Now, in simple terms, what is inflammation? Nothing but when the body cells, they swell up, the body is in a state of inflammation. So when we have an infection or a fever, our body is in a state of inflammation. When a person is suffering from COVID, the body is in the state of inflammation. And similarly, when a child is malnourished in the form that he's moving towards obesity, the body will be in the state of inflammation. And again, when a child has developmental delays in terms of emotional regulation, motor development, language barriers, the child will again have inflammation inside the body. And research again and again is going back towards the kind of the food these children eat, and is emphasizing that the diet that these children are consuming, that has been shifted from the traditional diet of being high in fiber and high in multigrains, is now being taken over by the standard westernized diet. And this standard westernized diet has again replaced nutrients from the plate, and it has just added a lot of salt, sugar, and a lot of processed food in terms of potato chips, junk food, high fat, sugar, and salt products on the plate of the child, which is again making the child more prone to an inflammatory state. And we do not want our children to be, you know, exposed to such environments. Why? Because any kind of inflammation in the body will ultimately impact the mental well-being, the growth, and the growth pattern of that particular child. So, again, inflammatory states and inflammatory kinds of diets are linked also with high rates of heart diseases, diabetes, obesity, like I was just discussing with you all, with and also high rates of cancer. So anything which was not traditionally consumed in our diets is something which is westernized form of diet for all of us. Anything which was consumed since centuries in our homes, whether it is a dosa, or whether it is something made out of rice or a curry or a gravy, which has been consumed by generations and generations of our families, is something which is considered healthy, because our bodies and our genes are very well accepting those kinds of food. So one very powerful quote by Anne Wigmore says that the food that you eat can either be the safest and most powerful form of medicine, or the slowest form of poison. So ultimately, this comes on to us, that what are we actually putting on a child's plate? And always remember that a child's plate should be as colorful as possible, and it should have all the colors of rainbows in terms of different types of fruit groups, like your fruits, vegetables, like your pulses and your milk and milk products, nuts and oil seeds, wherever possible. These changes should be made in a child's diet. Now, when we are talking about a poor quality diet, or a diet which is inflammatory in nature, how do we know that a child's diet is inflammatory in nature, or traditionally what the child is consuming is not actually healthy? So first of all, these products, if you will just start reading the labels of these products, first of all, these products will be all processed foods. You will find them available on the shelves of all the supermarkets. Secondly, they will be very high in sugar, they will have high glycemic index, they will lack micronutrients like your iron, folic acid, vitamin A, vitamin D, magnesium, zinc, and iron. And also, they will lack good quality proteins. Now, when we are referring to proteins being lacked in any kind of diet or any kind of meal of a child, basically, what are we, focusing on is that that a diet which is low in proteins will ultimately result in reduced production of amino acids, and these amino acids again will have reduced synthesis of neurotransmitters. For example, serotonin, which is also considered as a happy hormone, and it is very important for a child to feel happy. And the child will only feel happy scientifically when this neurotransmitter is secreted inside the child's brain. But what is the source of serotonin? Serotonin aayega kahan se? Serotonin will come from the pulses and animal products which the child will consume in terms of proteins in his or her diet, because the amino acid tryptophan is the precursor for serotonin. So again, if a diet is lacking good quality of amino acids, ultimately the diet will not be able to help the child secrete the required quantities and amounts of serotonin to make the child feel happy. And emotional regulation and emotional stimulus is something which is considered also as a risk factor for children who are on the spectrum of autism, who again report problems related to ADHD and behavioral issues. So please remember this thing, that these concepts are very easy to understand, but they are very difficult to apply when it comes to a child's diet. And again, high amounts of sugar in a child's diet are directly related to ADHD in such children. Why? Because the sugar is considered as a stimulus for hyperactivity disorders. The more amount of sugar you will give to your brain, again, you are actually making the brain go into the stage of inflammation. So please remember this thing, that the amount of sugar we are putting in a child's diet, that needs to be controlled, and the diet of a child again should have good quality of micronutrients depending upon the developmental pathway of a child, definitely yes, and good quality of proteins and fats. So let us just understand that what is the relation between diet, well-being, and a developmental milestone or a developmental delay. So something like there are parents or there are concerns related to children, that a child is very cranky when a certain kind of food is introduced to the child again and again. So what happens is that this is nothing but something which is also known as an eating behavior of a child is getting disturbed. Why? Because there is already a disliking from a child, from the child's side, that I do not want to eat this food product. And if that food product is something which ultimately impacts the nutritional status of the child, it will ultimately also impact the mental well-being and the developmental pathway of these particular children. Why? Because these micronutrients, they not only enhance the development of the brain, but they are also involved in many of the pathways, signals that the brain is sending towards its different targeted organs. Moving forward, when we are actually concerned about what our children are currently eating, this is the reality. This slide is actually the reality of what children of India are currently consuming. Whether you are from North India, South India, East India, West India, that doesn't matter. But a child's diet in current scenarios is inclusive of products which are high in saturated fats, high in sodium, lacks micronutrients and micronutrients of good quality. It lacks omega-3 fatty acids. And again, all this is nothing but high consumption of HFSS products, which is further being linked with eating disorders like binge eating, emotional eating, and further delays the development of the child, further delays the regulation of these milestones for children. Moving forward, like we were discussing about different micro and macronutrients which are involved in the brain function and the development of the brain. From the current slide, we all can see that these micro and macronutrients are very important to us. Now, in simple terms, what are macro and what are micro? Macro is something which is required in large quantities. Micro is something which is required by the body in smaller quantities. But to make it more clear, both are important to be taken care of. It doesn't mean that we only need the macros and we don't need the micros. We definitely need more of micros, because a traditional Indian diet will have macros in it. But when it comes to micros, a lot of micronutrients are lacking from our diet. And just to be very specific about what should be there in a child's diet, or what kind of diet should a child consume. Again, a child's diet should consist of all the good sources of these nutrients. And if you are not able to comprehend that what product should be added to a child's plate, simply remember, a child's plate should be very colorful. Whenever you see it, it should not be just one color or a monochromatic two color. It should be very colorful. Now, from where will you add colors? You will add colors through fruits, through vegetables, through nuts, through oil seeds. Okay, any oil seed, flax seed, chia seeds, sunflower seeds, melon seeds, any seeds you can pick. And these seeds again are of various different colors, and they can be added very well to a child's diet. And for example, if I just give you an example, that there is one of my nephews is like 5 years old and he doesn't like to eat a white curd. What do I do? How do I tackle this problem? Because like I am, telling you, proteins are very important for a child's developmental goals. So what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to make the white curd a little colorful by adding beetroot to it. Now, as and when you add a little beetroot to it, automatically the white curd will turn out to be pink in color, which is more acceptable by children. And again, you can just freeze it in the refrigerator and make frozen yogurt out of it and give it give it to the child in the form of ice creams. So you have to play with the child, in terms of colors, in terms of the applicability of such ingredients at the household level, so that you are able to provide all the macro and micronutrients to the child in helping the development of the brain. Now, what are the food sources through which we can get the right kind of micro and macronutrients which are responsible for our developmental milestones, which are responsible for managing our brain development if we are concerned about brain, or because again we know that if we are talking about developmental milestones, more or less it is again happening in relation to the brain. Why? Because brain controls our language, brain controls our speaking, brain regulates our emotion, brain regulates our physical body, brain regulates our motor development. So again, the brain is the powerhouse and center of our developmental milestones. So our whole grains, multigrains, fruits, vegetables, and green leafy vegetables, to be in specific when it comes to a child's diet, and seeds, any seeds, sunflower seeds, melon seeds, chia seeds, again are very important when it comes to achieving these developmental milestones, as they are good sources of your micronutrients, which includes your vitamins and minerals. Okay, if we just look at this current slide, tells you the importance of why we need to exclude sugar from our diet, and how sugar can impact with the intelligent portion of a child, how sugar can make a child more aggressive, and further again, if we are continuously exposing our brains towards high amount of sugars, it will again lead to diseases like dementia and Alzheimer's in later in life, learning difficulties for younger children as well. Why? Because if we look at these brain scans, these blue circles are nothing but the brain scans, which were compared for three category of people. One of the person was normal. He was normal weight, healthy, consuming a healthy diet person. The second one was who was addicted to drugs, and the third one is of a person who was obese. So again, what is happening is that like we were discussing about the inflammatory state that sugar puts our bodies into, these brain scans further signify that the addiction behavior that our brain responds to towards drugs and sugar is the same. If you just look at the colors of green areas highlighted in these two brain scans, they are exactly the same, because these are actually the activated parts of the brain which get scanned when an addiction or addictive behavior is reported to the brain. And it is same for sugar as well as it is same for drugs. So now it is a choice for us that do we really want to consume such high amounts of sugar in our diet? Moving forward, we have another group of culprits, I would say, which are responsible for poor brain health in our body, and these are nothing but trans fats or hydrogenated fats. Again, what are these trans fats and what are these hydrogenated fats? So these fats are nothing but fake fats in simple terms, which are manufactured by our food processing companies, and they are made out of vegetable oils, but they are very saturated in nature, and they resemble the ghee, the milk fat that we get from cow's milk or buffalo's milk, but they are not actually made from cow's milk. They are actually made from vegetable oils, which are saturated in nature. So once you consume high amounts of these fake fats, they ultimately make your body more prone to inflammation, leading to obesity, and ultimately putting the child at risk of poor mental well-being and emotional development. So what are we supposed to do when it comes to organizing the meals and organizing different food groups on the plate? First of all, care should be taken that whatever kinds of carbohydrates we are consuming or putting it on the plate of the child, they should be, rich in dietary fiber. They should not be simple carbohydrates. They should be complex carbohydrates. What are complex carbohydrates? Something like, you know, uh, any grain that we consume all over India. It can be wheat, it can be rice, but again, consuming the outer layer of that particular grain, which is known as the bran, is very important, because the bran again is a form of a dietary fiber, and it helps in regulation of blood sugar levels in the body, maintaining the weight of a human being as well. But it also provides immunity boosting micronutrients like your B complexes and selenium and zinc. The second most important thing is that we need to take care that whenever we are making a child's plate, or we are actually helping a child decide that what he or she should eat, care should be taken that in every meal that the child is consuming, breakfast, lunch, dinner, these are the major meals, then midday meal and your evening snacks are considered as minor meals. So all your major meals, your breakfast, lunch, dinner, should have some quantity and proportion of good quality proteins in the diet of the child. That helps in regulating the processes inside the brain, and also promotes emotional well-being for the children, as we already discussed about the example of serotonin, which is a happy hormone. So if everybody wants to be happy, we actually need serotonin in our body, but that doesn't mean that I'll just go and get a shot of serotonin. No, we will consume serotonin naturally in the form of foods in our diet. And one of the good sources of serotonin is that we consume good quality proteins in the diet, because with good quality proteins, we'll have tryptophan as an amino acid, and tryptophan helps in secretion of serotonin in our bodies. Coming to fats, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to leave the fats, or is there an alternative which is available? So the scientific ideologies and research have proven this fact that our brain is made up of 60% of fats. But these are again good quality fats, which are known as omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. And all our vegetarian group of population are blessed with such kinds of fatty acids, because these fatty acids are predominantly found in seafoods, including your fishes, shellfishes, your oysters, etc. And these are known as EPA and DHA. So currently, if you just look at the example of these malted beverages and milk powders, these are currently fortified with EPA and DHA, because again, EPA and DHA are very important when it comes to brain development of children. And EPA and DHA basically form the cell walls of the brain cells. So they are like the cementing material of the brain. So what can we do? We can consume seafood, but we can also consume, flax seeds. If we have a vegetarian group, what are we supposed to do? We can consume flax seeds. In Hindi, it is known as alsi, and flaxseed oil. So flax seeds and flaxseed oils are the richest vegetarian sources of omega-3s. And again, omega-3 fatty acids are very important when it comes to brain development and health. And please remember this thing, that our brains will not function without carbohydrates and fats in our diet. But the ideology should be managing the amount and quantities and quality of such sources in our diet to help a child attain its potential, developmental potential. So we have already discussed this thing, and one thing I would want to highlight is that your chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, and walnuts are good sources of your omega-3 fatty acids, and these are very easily available. So please try and include a teaspoon of these seeds in your diet on a daily basis, and also inculcate the habit of consuming these seeds by children also, because, if they are not already consuming rich sources of omega-3. Sorry. Now, omega-3s, like I was telling you, they basically form the membranes of the cell walls of the brain cells. They balance blood sugar levels inside our body, and they also increase the activity of the brain, which stimulates new growth of the brain cells. And if new brain cells will be secreted, ultimately, there will be new connections inside the brain, which is an indication that the brain of the child is developing. And if the brain of the child is developing, ultimately the child will be developing in all the sections of the life. Why? Because ultimately the entire brain development is happening through a good quality diet, and with the formation of new brain cells, new connections will be formed. These connections will again help in transmitting of information. These connections will again help in emotional regulation, fine motor development, gross motor development, emotional skills of the child, life skills of the child, and it will again make a child reach its developmental potential. Now coming to micronutrients. So why are micronutrients important in our diet? So micronutrients, first of all, form a very important part of our diet. And sadly, our diets are always, devoid of micronutrients. So we actually lack these micronutrients, which are your calcium, which are your magnesium, vitamin A, vitamin B6 from our diets. Now, when these are lacking, what will happen is that ultimately, you will start experiencing that child is lacking in terms of growth. When it comes to physical characteristics, you will see that the height of the child is not being attained. But why? Because again, calcium and protein are not there. Bone development is not happening. Again, child is falling ill a lot of times. That means selenium and zinc, which are your immunity boosting, your micronutrients, they are absent from the diet. And ultimately, if the child is, complaining of headaches and poor eyesight and vision, ultimately what is happening is vitamin A is lacking from the child's diet. So if we are concerned about holistic development of the child, we need to focus on these micronutrients, which are though required in small quantities in a child's diet, but they form a very important part because they ultimately, promote a holistic developmental pattern for a child. And every time we are removing a nutrient from a child's plate, we are actually, what we are doing is we are actually removing a good quality food product from a child's plate and replacing it with something which is processed. So please remember this thing, that definitely we can get these nutrients from supplements, but our bodies are traditionally synchronized in a manner that these micronutrients are easily absorbed in the body through through the food which is traditionally being cooked and consumed in a child's family. Now coming on individual, micronutrients, and the number one of them is zinc. So zinc, like I was telling you, is one of the immunity boosting micronutrients. And during COVID, zinc has attained its, importance of imparting the immunity to the body. It is anti-inflammatory in nature. And what are the sources? Again, all are animal products, but also our seeds and our vegetables form a very important part when it comes to zinc. There is another micronutrient which is known as magnesium, and magnesium is known as the relaxation mineral. Why? Because magnesium helps in releasing, the toxins from the body that are developed through excess consumption of alcohol, salt, coffee, sugar, soda that a child might consume. And magnesium levels in the body also, determine the emotional state of an individual, and they are related to mood disorders, behavioral disorders. And research has further signified this point, that if an individual is facing mood disruptions or disorders, has a depressive state of mind, applicable to children also. They have found this, that their blood magnesium levels are very low. And what are the sources? Again, the multigrains and whole grains that we consume. Apart from that, nuts and dark green leafy vegetables are something that are very important to be consumed when it comes to magnesium. Vitamin C, again, a very important antioxidant when it comes to a child's diet. Again, very colorful in nature, very bright sources we have, which includes oranges, lemons, tomatoes, pears, papayas, and GLV. So again, a fruit salad, vegetable salads should be an important part of a child's diet so that good sources of vitamin C can be added in the diet. Another important function of vitamin C in the body is that for absorption of iron in the body, we require vitamin C to be a part of it. Vitamin C is actually, important in the body, specifically for females, because a female child is more prone to developing, iron deficiency anemia. So wherever possible, please include vitamin C in the diet of the children, because it also helps in absorption of another micronutrient, which is your iron. Vitamin D, which is also known as the sunshine hormone, again anti-inflammatory in nature, and again very important for bone development. Researchers have further signified this, claim that cognitive impairment in children, memory loss in adults and elderly are related to vitamin D deficiencies. And vitamin D, apart from the sun, can be consumed from dietary sources, which includes again egg yolks, fishes, and cod liver oil, depending upon the preferences of the individuals. Another important and exciting concept when it comes to a child's diet is feeding the gut. Everybody now is aware about the gut-brain axis. If we are able to control, the micronutrients, which are also known as the healthy bacteria inside our body, we are ultimately controlling, the brain health of our body. We are actually from going towards, the developmental stages of being a happy human being. But again, controlling the gut microbiota, which is also known as in scientific terms, is a very technical aspect of promoting holistic development for children. Why? Because children many a times, complain during a exam that I am, facing an episode of bowel disorder, or I want to use the washroom, or I'm having stomach aches and I'm not feeling good about it. So basically, during that point of time, a child is experiencing anxiety, and a child doesn't know that how to express it. And ultimately, it all goes back to the gut, which is the stomach part. And again, the child, complains about these things. Why? Because again, it starts in the brain, it goes through the entire body, and it comes back to the brain. So such fears, that we generally experience in the form of anxieties are most often reflected in terms of poor gut health also. And it is very important, that we feed our healthy bacteria with good quality of food products. And these again include fermented foods. Down south, we have a variety of fermented foods available. And apart from that, we can also use home-based curds and pickles and fermented vegetables. Idli dosa again forms an important part of it. And all this again is helping us, going back to our roots of traditional dietary patterns and achieving the kind of immunity and gut health we all want for our kids. I would, just like to mention some of the developmental disorders here. One of them is autism, and I'll just move on to ADHD also, because these two kinds of developmental disorders are something which are very closely related to, diet of the child. And improving and research further signifies that, once we are able to improvise on the quality of diet of the children, we are actually able to manage these kind of disorders at a house level also. So if we talk about children who are on the spectrum, again it is very important that nutritional assessment for such children is done on a regular basis, which includes measuring the height and weight of the child, also measuring the head circumference. So head circumference is taken as a proxy indicator for better brain health. So if the head circumference is more, that it is considered that the child is there is inflammation inside the child's head, and that can be taken as a proxy indicator at resource poor settings, to be related with children for being on the spectrum. But again, such children who are on the spectrum have a lot of developmental issues when it comes to feeding themselves, or assisting, or they need assistance while picking up a particular food, because the sensory stimulation is lacking for such children. And again, when a sensory stimulation is lacking, the child will face problems related to positioning and posture. The child will not have any control over the body. The child will be not experiencing core strength and endurance. So it is very important, that we are involved with the child while the child is consuming his or her meals. Why? Because through interaction we will be able to focus on self-feeding practices with the help of utensils, which will further improve motivation in the child. It will improve coordination and efficiency of the child, and it will help the child in grasping the things, and increase the hand strength and the grasp of the child, because these are small milestones but very important milestones when it comes to children who are on the spectrum, that they are not able to sit properly, they don't have the balance in the body, there is no control with uh, the upper body part. So again, this is very important, and bilateral coordination needs to be there, in terms of both the hands should come on the table, both the hands should be used to pick up a product, so that the child knows that I need to use my both the extremities to move forward. And apart from that, a lot more happens, when it comes to the anatomical structures of such children, and these include uh, expressions on a child's face. So again, whenever a child is giving an expression, that should not be taken as being something right or wrong, or that should not be considered as something not required or something which is inappropriate. Why? Because a child is actually expressing through giving those expressions. So please be soft and kind with children when it comes to dealing with children on the spectrum, because it is a little difficult with them when it comes to their facial expressions and replication of such information inside their brain. And again, these developmental delays are also important when it comes to neuromotor development, which again includes movement of the tongue, chewing inside the mouth, jaw stability, reflexes like swallowing, seeing a product, coughing and gagging, because generally, children do these kind of reflexes to signify that they are not interested in the kind of food that is being, given to them. So all these should be taken as signs of development, and it should be understood that such developmental concepts need to be taken care of with sensitivity towards the child, and the patient or the parent or the caregiver needs to be patient while they are actually involving themselves with the children. Again, when it comes to developmental delays, um, sensory aspect is something which becomes very important, particularly for the children who are on the spectrum. And activities where a child is involved in sensing the kind of the food he is consuming through eyes, through touch, which is also known as the tactile senses, through smelling it or inhaling the fumes of the product, so that the sensory receptors inside the brain become activated and they accept the food well, is very important for such kind of children. And further, again, care should be taken that food should always be home cooked food, which is served at a room temperature. It should neither be too hot, it should neither be too cold, because the children can be hyper responsive when it comes to hot foods. So moving forward, respiration, airway protection, and swallow safety is something that again becomes important, because many a times children have behavioral issues, and force feeding to a child can lead to emotional outbursts, and during these emotional outbursts, if a parent is actually feeding food to a child, there are chances that the product might get stuck in the vocal cavity of the child, and again it can cause issues related to respiration to children. Now, when we are actually feeding a child, it is very important that an eye contact is maintained with the child. There is a lot of motivation which is happening while the feeding is done, and a lot of engagement in terms of stories, a lot of engagement in terms of verbal communication and visual stimulation needs to be done to make the entire process of feeding a very happy process, rather than force feeding the child. And furthermore, research has again signified this concept that Fengold's diet, which is actually about eliminating the artificial food colors and preservative from a child's diet, is something of importance when it comes to feeding children with the ASD and other developmental disorders also. Why? Because these um, um, artificial sweeteners, preservatives, and colors, these are nothing but synthetically produced organic compounds, and these can further lead to imbalances in the brain. And if we just correlate it with what we have just discussed about the diet of the child, it goes back to being traditional in nature, because traditionally in our diets, if you just see that what our grandparents were eating or consuming and still being healthy at 90, the reason was that it was all natural, it was all pure. Again, with low quality, with no amounts of processed foods. So whenever we are concerned about diets of the children, again, these preservatives should be eliminated from a child's diet. And unfortunately, in Indian food industry, these preservatives are used in high quantities, and these can be found in any of the food products as antioxidants, BHA, BHT, PBHQ, again, not required for a child's diet, and they can be easily eliminated from the child's diet. Food colorants, again, are very, important when it comes to elimination, and different food colorants are used for making these processed foods look attractive, in terms of candies, bars, in terms of chocolates, and ice lollies. And these color dyes again become very hazardous to a developmental delay for a child. So these new children who are on the spectrum generally need nutritional therapy, which includes mineral and vitamin therapy and elimination of gluten, casein, and supplementation with again essential fatty acids like omega-3 and other micronutrients. There are also some of the restrictive diets which we can use for children, and these restrictive diets are more particularly used when we have a child who has particular allergies, either related to lactose like cow's milk, or gluten like wheat allergy. That if you're giving a child milk, the child will puke, the child will will get rashes. And why this is happening? Because the child's body is not accepting the milk sugar, which is known as lactose, and alternatives need to be sought out for such kind of children. So care should be taken, and responses of the children should be noted whenever new foods particularly are introduced in a child's diet. Like previously suggested, micro fatty acid supplementation in terms of omega-6 fatty acid is very important for children, and it helps in maintaining the brain health, as the neural cell membrane is made out of these omega 3 fatty acids. And it's very important that a child's brain is healthy, and it helps in maintaining the neural cell membrane, as the neural cell membrane is made out of these omega 3 fatty acids. And it's very important that a child's diet consists of these omega-3 fatty acids. Again, micronutrient supplement, very important for children, goes a long way in maintaining the gut health also. Now the question comes that which aspect of the diet influences hyperactivity, also known as ADHD. Again, coming back to the impact of the sugar. So sugar has a very important role to play when it comes to hyperactivity disorders, because again it puts the body in a very inflammatory state, and all our processed food in terms of candies, sodas, iced lollies, they have sugar as one of the base and the key ingredients. So please try and eliminate sugar from a child's diet as and when possible. And what are the foods that should be considered to be in impacting the hyperactivity? Again, the junk food, which again includes your processed meats, potato chips, and your takeaway foods and your soft drinks. And what needs to be consumed? Again, whole grains, multigrains, fresh fruits and vegetables, dairy products, and animal products wherever possible. Now, what we need to understand is that diet can impact a child's developmental milestones, along with the environment and the genetic factors also. And it is a continuum of care model that needs to be taken care of. It is not that a single factor will only be responsible. It is a conjunction of various factors coming together and uh, uh, leading towards holistic development of the child. And diet is potentially more important when it comes to a child's behavioral disorders, and what needs to be done on a parent from a parent's perspective. Again, feeding expectations should not be related to force feeding. The child will eat when the child will feel hungry. The parents should be motivated enough to give good quality products to the child, rather than giving these sugar sweetened milk formulas to the child. And wherever possible, the process should be engaging and happy, so that the development of the child, not only in terms of the food that he's consuming, but also the emotional development and the fine motor development which happens, that whenever the child is picking up a utensil, that is also happening simultaneously. So again, care and patience forms an important part when it comes to feeding food to children. And again, acceptance of the food, texture of the food, sensory stimulation, environment at the home, what are the parents observations, what are the meal timings when a child is supposed to consume food. All this is very important when it comes to holistic development of children. And wherever possible, the feeding process should again be a very interactive process in nature. The child should always be praised and promoted, or motivated or congratulated with a reward whenever he or she achieves a developmental milestone. So again, such motivations also help in boosting up a child's confidence. And wherever possible, children should be involved in food shopping and preparation at a household level, because through such activities, they are actually increasing their sensory stimulation by the touch of a product, by inhaling the fumes of a product, and by mixing the products together. They are actually creating a visual memory for themselves, which goes a long way in making a child involved in foods. And playful activities where we are able to make colorful plates with the help of fruits and vegetables, curds and squeezers on a toothpick. These actually become a lot more interesting for children, and a child learns that this is not only making me happy in terms of the colors, but I have made it. It gives me that motivation, it gives me that power, that I have achieved something, and if I consume it, then I will be a superhero as well. So such kind of motivation needs to be given to the child in terms of food games and toys. And when it comes to structuring the family meals, care should be taken that the child is not consuming the food alone. Child is consuming the food with all the family members together. Any arguments or quarrels during the meal times should be avoided in front of the children. And when it comes to children, small children, again, finger foods need to be, on the plate of a child, which involves less of cutlery but involves beautiful combination of colors. Again, protein sources need to be there in all the major meals. Portion sizes of children should be small, and the child should be involved in menu selection and preparation at the household levels. And again, coming to parents, it is the prime duty of parents, and the caregivers, that they do not force feed a child. Whenever we are actually force feeding a child, we are actually taking out all the emotional, development the child has achieved. So please do not do that, and wherever possible, try and stimulate the oral senses, the tactile senses of the child with the help of storytelling and with the help of introduction of new foods. Last but not the least, what should be done? What should we do to make ourselves more educated? First of all, it is we should ask the question, what am I eating? Whatever I am eating, is it healthy? We should start reading the nutrition labels of the food products and how these ingredients, different ingredients, they impact my mental well-being. And if they're impacting my mental well-being, will they also impact my child's developmental milestones? Yes, definitely, because they are all interrelated. And please also try and understand that if there is a food product, and if the child is not happy consuming that food product, force feeding a child should never be what food should never be a way out of it. The child should always be motivated to consume new products. So I would like to end the session over here with a famous quote by Dr. Mark Hyman. And he says that the most powerful tool you have to change your brain and your health is your fork. So please remember this thing. And now we are open to questions. And my heartfelt thanks to the team of Hear and Say Clinic for organizing such beautiful and informative webinars, which help us researchers to disseminate the kind of knowledge that we gather through doing such researches, and we are able to connect with the audiences live. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Preeti. It was really nice information, and I really liked the quote. So you have quite shared a lot of information about diets, about food colors, about there are so many things, sensory, everything. So I think it will be really helpful. And there's a question with regards to force feeding. My son doesn't eat if we don't play songs on Spotify for him. He's 4 years old on a spectrum. So what do you suggest?
Oh, okay. Thank you for that question. First of all, what I would like to suggest is that force feeding should never be the motive. What we can do is that definitely, yes, we know that a behavioral issue is there with the child, and he has developed a pattern that I will only eat a food product when I will listen to something which is auditory in nature. So instead of putting sounds which are in terms of music or this hip hop music which is going on, what I would suggest is that if you really want to put on the music, please go on for rhymes. Please go on for a meditative form of a music, which will also help in balancing the child's mental health. And while you are putting on such calming music, care should be taken that you are placing the food right in front of the child, and the child will automatically start eating himself or herself. You will never have to force feed a child. If the child is calm, if the child is composed, and if a child knows that he is in a protective environment, the child will eat the food whenever he or she is hungry. So force feeding should not be there. And if you are actually facing difficulties, the child is still not consuming the product. So even if the child is consuming a single bite, two bites in a single go, that should be the pattern, rather than making the child consume the entire meal all at once. Portion sizes should be small, and a pattern that is specific to a particular child needs to be followed, because these feeding patterns are very specific to children. Some children consume the entire meal in a single go. Some children actually require assistance, actually require supervision at multiple levels. Yeah, thank you.
So, but is it okay to play music on Spotify is what was the question. So you are saying that they can change, the choice of the music can be changed, right?
Yeah, definitely something which is more calming, something which is more educative in nature, that can be put, if that is a requirement for a child, because I think that is something which is because the child is on spectrum and needs that auditory stimulation or a command, to consume the food. So if that is the way the child is programmed, or his brain is programmed, then you can definitely go for something which is a meditative music, or something which is like a rhyme, so that the child also learns while he is consuming the food.
So I just asked you on this question, the next question, can we do something like we can reduce the volume of it and sing along so that it is more of our voice than the, device?
That's the best, probably, that we all can do. Like, we all also, perform chanting. So basically, what are we doing? We are actually training our minds to our own voices. So that is one of the best therapies that can be done with children. But again, this will need a little time for coming out of that Spotify mode and to the verbal communication methods. So definitely yes, but again, if in between, there are transition periods where the child is very adamant about it, or getting very cranky, or showing behavioral issues, then we can have that calming music with the food and move on to singing a particular song in our own language with the child.
So a planned and slow desensitization is required here.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. And Dr. Preeti, is always nice to hear from you. And there's a thank you for choosing a very nice topic. Thank you so much. And just on a personal note, I know Dr. Preeti since childhood, and we have grown up in the same community in Delhi. And it was really nice to have us with us here. And she has actually worked hard. I know her personally. She has gone to many international conferences, and she's been very vocal about the food and the mental health. She's always advocating good food habits for good mental health in teens, in youngsters, and in elderly people. And recently, we also had a webinar done by her for different special educators across Telangana, which was about food only, because many kids have their at least minimum one meal in school. So even teachers should be aware about what the child is eating, and she had actually helped teachers a lot. And this is a second with her for the parents. Thank you so much, Dr. Preeti. Any questions in future, we will definitely mail you. I request all the parents present here or watching us on Facebook Live to send your questions, which can be answered by Dr. Preeti later. Thank you so much. Thank you for
Thank you so
joining.
much for having me here. It is coming back home whenever I speak with you, because you have always been the motivation behind such kind of work. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for joining. Thanks for your time. Yeah, ending it.